What up, guys? Today we have a question from a young guy who is 16 years old, and he is wanting to get into his very first MMA fight. So he says that he's been training kickboxing for about 10 years, been training since he's a kid, and then still kind of a kid, a teenager, right? And he says that he's recently started jiu-jitsu. He's been doing jiu-jitsu and MMA for about 6 months, and he's wanting to get into an MMA fight because he feels like he has something to prove to himself. And so he talks to his mom. Hey, Mom, I'd like to do an MMA fight. Well, of course, his mom's not up for this. She's not too keen on the idea. And so he sends me a message kind of asking, like, all right, Chewy, what can we do to convince my birth giver that I want to fight MMA and let her let me do it, right? And that's his kind of question to me. So, Brandon, thank you for the question, bro. So check this out. Probably nothing you're going to do to convince your mother, bro. Your mom probably sees you as this little baby still, even though you're not, right? You're out there doing kickboxing and everything else. She probably still sees you as this little baby on some level, right? You're her little baby. Like my mom, I remember getting into wrestling. My mom didn't like wrestling. And then when I got into MMA, she sure as hell didn't like that stuff. I remember showing my mom my very first MMA fight, or it was on my second fight. I showed her the videotape of it. It was like I was showing her this proud work, right? I was like, came home, this is not a VHS, but I came home with the little square VHS and I was like, hey Mom, let me show you something. Popped it into the VCR, and I took the guy down very quickly, kneed him in the stomach, and I'm like punching him in the head, and my mom's looking at it just horrified, like, oh. And she starts hitting me, right? She starts swatting me on the arm, and I said, what are you doing, Mom? She said, why are you so mean? I'm not mean. This was a fight. He would have done the same thing to me. And she she couldn't see it, right? Because she saw me as this cute little thing that she had raised, and now I had turned into this friggin' monster of a human being that's in there fighting people. So she wasn't a big fan of it. She was supportive, but she wasn't a big fan. So I imagine your mom might have a little bit of that going on, right? So again, we're not going to try to convince Mom. Now, what I'm going to try to convince you of, bro, is that it's not the time to fight yet. So in my opinion, my bearded opinion, take it or leave it, I think that MMA fighting, there's pros and cons to as far as the damage it does to you, but in my opinion, it's a lot tougher on the body than the two sports that you're doing right now separately. You're doing kickboxing separately, you're doing MMA or jiu-jitsu, sort of separately. Getting into an MMA fight in a lot of cases, especially at the amateur levels, first off, it's the Wild West sometimes, so you can't always bank that this guy is who I've seen guys get into amateur MMA fights and have people sandbag, basically, lie about their experience so they can get easier fights. And then also, too, in a lot of places, there is very little difference from, say, like amateur to pro-level MMA. They might take away elbows, but there's no extra padding, there's no extra headgear, there's no shin guards, nothing. Some states do it. A lot of states don't. And so essentially, you're subjected to a lot of the damage that you will as a pro, but you're doing it at a very young age. And in my opinion, I was sharing this with one of my students recently, what you're trying to do as an athlete, right, is you're trying to be very smart with the tread on your tires, so to speak. So you as a person, you only have so much in you as far as your output. You can only put out so much energy, so much effort, so much work over the years until your body starts getting used up, right? Just the way it is. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to be smart with your training so that you reach this sort of physical prime and you got some tread left on your tires and you have this point where they intersect and you're good for a while. And then eventually your body starts to break down, and hopefully that's when you're a little bit older, maybe in your 30s, right? If you start fighting MMA, really fast and you start doing this stuff and you're not properly prepared for it physically, you're going to probably take a lot more damage, and you might be one of those guys where, by the time you reach your 30s, your body's already been used up. You don't have any tread left on the tires anymore because you were just going too hard, too fast, and you weren't trained up properly for it. And so we took a lot of unnecessary damage early. And then by the time we got to our 30s, we're still a young man, but we're already beat up and broken. So you don't want that to happen. So what I would suggest is you're already doing kickboxing, you've been doing it for 10 years. Go do some amateur kickboxing matches. You wear headgears typically, you got your gloves, you got your shin guards. Still damage that can be taken, but again, it's in a lot of ways, it's a lot more forgiving in some respects. And then there is jiu-jitsu competitions, which obviously are a lot more forgiving than a MMA fight where you can have a lot of damage done. Go do those. Do those in their separate spaces and get really good at both, right? Become a good jiu-jitsu practitioner. Become a good kickboxer. Focus on those things. You're 16 years old. You got time on your hands right now, bro. I know you want to prove yourself, as you should. As a young man, we all go through that. We want to prove ourselves to the people around us that, hey, I'm good at something. I have something to offer people. I have a skill. It's good. It's fine. But again, we don't want to forget that, again, you're a young guy and you have time on your hands. So get good at these two sports. And then when you're, 18, 19, 20, whatever it is, you'll have this base developed and you'll easily be able to mix these things together. Plus, you said you're training MMA already, so you're already mixing these things together. And then you can start fighting and you'll have a good base under you so that those first, couple of fights, you'll do really well. You'll probably clean up house easily. And then you'll start, hitting those tougher fights, the fights that are going to accrue a little bit more damage on you later on in your career, opposed to taking a lot of damage early on from the moment you start training, and then you're just getting beat up the whole time, and again, wearing out that body maybe a little bit too early. So that's my suggestion, Brandon. Go do some kickboxing matches, go do some jiu-jitsu matches, and then worry about MMA down the road. But that said, man, good luck with your training. I'll talk to you guys next time.